Hello everybody and welcome back to the Figure Fourcast. We're back after a couple of weeks post SummerSlam. Going to talk a little bit about that and a little bit about the year that has been WWE under Triple H's rule. As ever, I'm joined by King Damo. How you doing?
Not bad. It's been a little hectic. Summer always is, and wrestling tends to be a lot on. But yeah, SummerSlam. What are your thoughts now? We're a week or so out.
As you know, I had to watch it back.
Yeah,
because I was pretty much asleep for the whole thing.
But first late one in a while versus here.
Yeah,
okay. So it's
big shock.
Little used to.
I had a busy day the day before as well, so it was tough going. But I think I saw 2 matches out of the whole card that I remembered. But yeah, after I watched it back, I think my overwhelming thought was kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah.
In a way, I had a lot of high hopes going into it, and there was definitely a couple of matches, at least, that didn't deliver for me. How about you?
I was also feeling pretty tired. Not a comment on the show.
Yeah.
Side. It was just one of those ones. But I feel like there was a point in the show that I got re-energized. You was out of it by this point, but the women's triple threat match definitely re-energized my.
Yeah. I can see why. It back. It's pretty cool.
Which I did think was a really high point. I think there was a lot of really good stuff in it, but it was. I think the problem is the main event.
Yeah.
And I think it didn't quite hold up to the expectations it had been set. It needed to deliver in terms of both the match and any potential shenanigans, and I think it kind of undersold a little bit on both, and I think that's the takeaway you take from it. I don't think there's much else wrong with the show overall, but I think the main event sours it just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's right. For me, like just for the whole Bloodline story, it kind of felt like they got to a point where they weren't sure what they're doing. It was just like, well, we can't have Jay beat him. Jimmy is going to attack him and turn on him.
It's something that's been in the works for a while. They did an interview saying that one of the things they've always wanted to do was face each other at Mania. Can they drag that out until Mania?
How long was that? 8 months? Bit longer.
Yeah, but it's over the winter, which is always a bit more of a quieter thing.
It is.
Obviously, on SmackDown, Jay has quit, and
but he's going to AEW. He's going to be all in.
He's almost definitely not going to AEW.
But is Edge?
But he could take a couple of weeks off if he skips Payback.
Yeah,
I think that would be the best in terms of the story. Take a break, do something else for a little bit.
Yeah, they can't have him on TV.
It's not ruined the story. There's always more. It's not quite as good as the high points of that story is here.
It just felt like panic stations almost. I didn't like it because my interpretation of this whole tribal combat match, and I think they actually alluded to it, was that it's a match of honor.
Yeah.
It's the tribal chief against the challenger, and that's it. You can do whatever you want to each other, no interference. Best man wins. And then obviously it was just the usual story. Solo Sikoa interferes, and then eventually Jimmy interferes. So that's why I was disappointed. But I mean, we could probably go around in circles for the main event.
As we're going to be talking about the last year, SummerSlam a year ago, Damage Control formed. Io Sky and Kota Kai returning to WWE. A year later, obviously they're standing tall at the end of a women's match, cashing in Money in the Bank. I know we like a Money in the Bank to have a little bit more longer story, but this for women has been practically eons compared to some of the
Absolutely, yeah.
Obviously, the whole build-up with Bianca Belair getting injured, but then managed to pick up the win, was such a believable bit of storytelling. I genuinely thought the real injury.
Sure, yeah, she did a great job there selling it.
I had her as my prediction to win, and I was just like, oh no, this can't be how I lose. Like Bianca being injured and off, and they fully baited me there. But I think it was really well done, and I'm looking forward to seeing what goes forward with Io as champion.
Oh yeah, I think that's best possible scenario for this match.
Yeah,
it's a great match in itself. Bianca winning, great, and then Io coming in and cashing in, best possible outcome, like I say. And it looks like she's going to be booked fairly well as champion.
Yeah.
The one SmackDown we've had afterwards, I was fairly impressed.
Came out
obviously got
to attack. Like carry on the beat down, wanting to be a dominant champion.
You've obviously got this like underlying thing that's kind of been on and off with Bayley potentially being jealous, so there's a lot to do with that. She's got Shotzi to deal with first, but yeah, I mean it's impressive. Sort of linking into the whole Triple H thing, I think one of his biggest successes in terms of performers since he's been in charge is Gunther.
Yeah.
I wasn't impressed with the match, Drew and Gunther. I thought it was going to be a lot more. I think it was one of the real under-deliveries.
Yeah, it was. I still enjoyed the match, but it's not lived up to some of Gunther's matches recently. I think that's the problem overall with SummerSlam. It's not that SummerSlam was bad, it's that if you take some of the moments from previous events that we've had where we've had similar kind of setups, there's been like, top quality, quote 5-star segments for a lot of these things, and we're expecting all of them to be that level, and it just wasn't able to deliver that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Gunther's had the match with Sheamus that we're there for, and I guess if you're holding it to those standards, it was nowhere near, obviously. It was just a disappointment because I'm not Drew's biggest fan, as you well know.
You decided to get back into him, haven't you?
Yeah. He seemed like he was really informed, really invested, and then the match, it was just like... It was just disappointing for me. We had a couple of other matches on the card, of course. The MMA rules match, which probably against most people's views, I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, actually. I liked what they were going for. It didn't hit with the crowd, but I think that's more on the crowd than
for sure
than the performers there. I kind of liked what they were trying. It was something a little bit different. The only other thing they probably could have done is go for a match in the vein of the Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit matches they used to do. I accidentally mentioned his name.
They were redacted.
Yeah, they obviously then those two had matches back in the day. They would be very technical, very submission heavy, and they could have gone that way. I think doing it a little bit more how they did it was obviously a little bit different, trying something new, and you can never fault them for trying.
Just fingers crossed, touch any bit of wood in this room. They push Shayna now. She's got that momentum off the back of this. She's just beaten Ronda Rousey, and you could finally book her as like this all conquering, scary heel.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Anything else you want to talk about on SummerSlam?
Is that the end of Brock Lesnar for a while at least? I think it is.
If it was to be believed, I think he'd benefit from a little bit of time off TV.
He had a good run with Brock Lesnar this last year practically.
Yeah, sure. It was a good match between him and Cody as well.
Yeah,
enjoyable match.
I don't know what happened to his shorts. They just kind of exploded at one point.
God knows. Yeah, God knows. It's kind of not quite AJ Styles butthole type situation, but. Yeah, it happened.
We almost saw the Beast's Beast.
The Beast's Beast. Yeah. Wow, that's got an image in my head. Let's quickly moving on.
Go back then. We're a couple of weeks behind on this, but we have now tipped into year 2 under Triple H. He took over just before SummerSlam last year.
Yeah.
July 17th, I think she is. I think we might be about a month behind recording here. But we've now had a full year. Now, that is obviously with a bit of an asterisk because Vince obviously did return during that time.
Yeah.
There was a couple of weird episodes, a couple of weird segments that have been attributed to him online, whether they were or not.
Yeah.
Debatable. Although recently Vince has been out of the hot seat again because he's been undergoing some spinal surgery or something, which is a crazy sounding thing, especially at his age. Hope it went well, because you don't want anything bad happening to anyone. But what have your thoughts been over the last year of the Triple H WWE?
So it's definitely an improvement, right? I think everybody across the board can agree on that. WWE as a product was probably at one of its lowest, if not lowest points in 2019 before COVID happened. At least in the time that I've been watching it. It was the closest I've ever been to falling out of watching WWE on a weekly basis. We obviously had COVID. The crowds came back, and then it was hot. Like, crowds coming back is almost a novelty again. Excuse me. And then it was just flat again. It was just a flat product for me. It wasn't quite at the lows of 2019, but it was fairly flat. Once Vince went, there was almost an immediate pickup in terms of match quality. There's a bit more variety. It wasn't just the normal WWE style. Storylines making more coherent sense.
Yeah.
And probably the main thing, pay-per-views becoming really, really enjoyable. Not this long slog that you almost got to a point where you were enduring it. It was just really enjoyable. So on a whole, I'd say Triple H's era so far has been a massive improvement. I've personally enjoyed it. It's got me invested in the product again. The numbers are there. It shows the numbers have gone up. And some of these numbers that are getting for SmackDown are insane. They've obviously got this bloodline story. When's the last time WWE ever did a story that's lasted 3 odd years? Obviously, that was into the Vince still in control. But I'd say it's markedly improved since Triple H.
If you think under Triple H, we've had the entire solo to the bloodline.
Sami Zayn was under Triple H.
Yeah.
There was a little bit in Vince's reign, but it was mainly under Triple H. I'm trying to think where I was now. I'm trying to completely lost it. I'll come back to me. Well, what's your sort of overriding thoughts?
Mostly positive.
Yeah.
Now, we're never gonna enjoy everything in wrestling. It's something that people argue about on the internet, but it is a variety show. You're not supposed to enjoy every single moment of it because we all have different tastes.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to criticise WWE too much for the things that I don't enjoy as much, because there are a lot of people that do. One of the things that has been a kind of staple of Triple H era is long title reign.
You're not a massive fan of this.
When it's basically every title, I feel it loses something. So obviously we've had Roman Reigns holding all the world titles for most of that. We've had Gunther being on a title reign that lasted that entire time. We've had tag team champions that lasted. I mean, when the Usos won it, but they held it for a long time until losing a Mania. And now the tag team champions have held it 6 months.
Mania. Austin Theory that held it for. Is he the new record holder, or is very close to being?
That's right. He obviously had a really long title reign. Rhea Ripley,
Bianca.
We've done a lot of long title reigns, and when it's all of the titles, I feel it takes away some of the unpredictability in WWE a little bit, because we had it with one of the Bianca Belair matches. We were trying to predict who was winning, so she's going to break the record next week. She's winning because they're giving her that record, and it shouldn't be that predictable.
No, yeah, I agree with that.
Well, we've got Gunther at the minute. He's taking on Honky Tonk Man's record.
I haven't seen Raw this week, and I thought there was going to be a really shock surprise.
Yeah, no,
got Gunther. He's taking on the Honky Tonk Man.
And at this point, it seems almost inevitable that he is going to break that. Which kind of when he has a match now, it's like, well, he's going to win because they're going to give him the record.
Yeah, I think done in the right way, it is really effective. Obviously, it's been effective in Roman's case, Gunther's case.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Seth Rollins does not need to have held that World Heavyweight title as long as he has. That was the perfect opportunity to have a switch. He could have lost it before this Finn Balor story. He definitely should have lost it.
He should have lost it.
During.
He should have lost it, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Across the board, having every single champion as a long-term title holder.
I get that it makes them look strong, but I feel like you lose something in doing that.
I think in a way maybe he's trying to build the prestige of the belts back up, because especially for those mid-card titles, they'd never meant less than what they did when he took over, I'd say.
Does the United States Championship mean anything more now than it did when Austin Theory won it?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying I think he was trying to do that. Like, there's successes and failures, isn't there? Like Gunther, raging success. Austin Theory, probably a failure.
Yeah.
Well, it's not probably. It hasn't worked out the way he wants.
Said I'm not going to hate on it too much because some people really enjoy these. It's just one of those things that's not for me. But
yeah. Another topic that I think gets raised when criticising Triple H's reign, I think rightly so, is some of his call-ups and rehirings. So there's been some that have been really effective. Gunther, who we've mentioned, Solo Sikoa coming up, who we've mentioned. But there seems to be more, I don't know if I want to call them failures or not, but there's more that are just in the wilderness almost. You can just list them, can't you? You've got Johnny Gargano.
We talk about, you say this is a failure of Triple H era WWE, but compare it to Vince era.
Yeah.
Like the later years, like we'll take one that got called up, had a terrible call up, left, came back into Triple H, and he's in the wilderness, as you said, Karrion Kross. Compared to how Vince handled him, Triple H is a success.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd say that compared to that, but that's
like it could be a lot better, but that's not a fair comparison on Triple H.
Yeah. But I think Karrion Kross is kind of the prime example. He's come back and he's not the prime example, but he's been on TV, but I don't think it's been a success.
I would say it is just because of what the alternative was. Like,
yeah, that's a very low bar that you're comparing it to.
Well, that's what we should be comparing it to. WWE to WWE, not to the hypothetical situation where Karrion Kross comes back and he's World Heavyweight Champion. Because that's what a lot of people are booking when they see, Johnny Gargano's back, he's going to win the Intercontinental title, he's going to have 10 5-star matches and he's going to defeat Roman Reigns.
But the way, if you think back to Clash when we went last year, Karrion Kross was staring down Roman Reigns. You think now, Karrion Kross going up against Roman Reigns is laughable.
I mean, most people going up against Roman Reigns is laughable at this point, which is the other problem with really long title reigns. You eventually wear through.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to search some of Triple H's rehirings, and we can just go through them very quick.
We basically just go through half the roster.
Yeah. Here's one that I completely forgot about. Tegan Knox.
Didn't she get injured?
Probably. She's always injured. Sarah Logan, part of the Viking guys. Meh. Very meh. Emma, not seen her in ages.
Yeah, okay.
The Good Brothers.
Could have done a lot more with it.
Yeah.
They're a solid mid-card tag team.
Hit Row.
Been a bit of a weird one with Hit Row. But
Candice LeRae.
Jen, I thought she got injured, but
no, she might have, but she's been back for a while. She's great, man, and they're not using her. Mia Yim, been focused in the IC story, fair enough. She's been used a bit. Bronson Reed, oh my god, useless.
He's getting TV time, so.
Even more useless. Dexter Lumis, possibly the worst character.
I loved his thing with the Miz.
Oh my god, I hate it.
So much fun.
Karrion and Scarlett, who we've talked about a bit. Johnny Gargano, Triple H guy. He's just not been used.
They're not giving him a story. He is involved in a story of
Ciampa.
With Ciampa looking for him. They're going to reform DIY.
Yeah. Braun Strowman, to be fair, he was in that really good tag team with Ricochet.
Yeah.
And unfortunately he got the injury. Dakota Kai, you have to say, has been a success.
Yeah.
And then Bray Wyatt.
And not Triple H's fault how it's happened.
Yeah. But when he was in the company and an active performer,
they gave him a really long story, which just took too long to get going.
yeah.
We could be sat here having a very different conversation if Bray Wyatt's health problems, we don't know any of the details apart from it was potentially life-threatening. If those hadn't happened, we could be having a very different conversation. We would have got through a WrestleMania and a SummerSlam now with presumably big matches for him.
Yeah.
We could have a very different outlook on that story. Unfortunately, it took so long to get going. People started to sour on it, and then this health issue happened.
Yeah.
Not got any resolution.
Well, when's the last time we saw him? Was it that Mountain Dew match at the Rumble? Was it really that long ago?
I think it was, yeah.
Bloody hell.
Which, aside from the weird Mountain Dew blacklight stuff, didn't hate what we was getting.
I'm not sure what I thought.
It was just it was a very strange presentation, but the underlying stories that were being put in.
Well, if one good thing came out of it, it was LA Knight.
Yeah.
Who really proved himself. He's like, I think, the only person that's ever had a Bray Wyatt feud and come out better from it.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge success that's occurred under
Absolutely.
the Triple H era.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to talk about under Hunter? Papa Paul? Papa H?
Where do you think we're going to be? We always do, our whole thing is predictions.
Yeah.
Forecasting. SummerSlam next year. Where do you think, because presumably the takeover, not the NXT, the merger between WWE and UFC, can't think what their parent company's called.
Endeavour.
Sure, presumably that would be either finished or well underway. Sometimes these things take ages. I don't know if you've followed the Xbox Activision one.
Oh, yeah,
it's practically a wrestling soap opera by itself.
Yeah.
So that could obviously have a huge impact on how things go. We could be fully back under Vince by then.
God, no.
We could have a third big promotion of Triple H leaving and creating his own. That's a rumour that people have been trying to start on the website formerly known as Twitter.
Hicks.
But where kind of do you think we might be? Because one thing, presumably for sure, Roman Reigns won't be champion, presumably.
Yeah, presumably.
By that.
I don't know where we'll be in terms of like control of the company. I hope Triple H is still in charge. In an ideal world, Cody's champion.
Winning at Mania and carrying it through to post SummerSlam?
I think that's the way it's going at the minute, isn't it?
What is your ideal?
Yeah. He is this era's John Cena. And in many ways, I think he does John Cena better than John Cena.
John Cena better than John Cena?
Not in the character sense, in the tone the company line and being this like good guy baby face. I'd say he was.
I don't think he toes the company line better than John Cena did.
I'm not sure. He's a worker.
Especially Super Cena era Cena. Like obviously younger Cena when he was rapping was definitely not towing the company.
I think there's an argument to be had there.
It's an interesting argument.
In terms of just the shows, I think he does everything John Cena did, but better. The Welcome to Monday Night Raw, the stuff he does better, like the game show host type of thing. The promos he does better. The in-ring he's better.
I think
and the reaction, he actually gets a babyface reaction.
The thing is, though, Cena was getting a reaction from the kid and not a reaction from...
Yeah.
This could very easily happen to Cody.
I don't think...
AEW turned on it.
Yeah, there was different reasons for that, though.
We could have a situation where Cody reaches the mountaintop and the fans turn on, because they normally do turn on a babyface.
Yeah. He's not the stereotypical WWE babyface, though. It seems like he's got a bit of... Yeah, this is what I'm saying, though. He is, but he manages to do it in a way that you can't dislike him.
I think you're forgetting how big Cena was.
No, I remember.
Back then.
I remember. I think there's... I don't know, I think there's an argument to be had. But, yeah, going back to your question, in the ideal world, he's got to be champion.
It is an inevitability, surely.
And a feud with Gunther would be just top tier for me. Like, we got that match in the Royal Rumble. I had a mini match, and that was just incredible.
As much this I think this would be both horrible and really funny. As much as I hope the Bloodline story is fully wrapped by next Mania, I would love them to fake us out by having a similar situation where he's about to hit the third crossroads. Someone tries to interfere, but is unsuccessful. I think that would be hilarious. Just make everyone swear. They won't do it. They probably...
I was so close to like just giving up on WWE after Cody lost. You saw me. I've never been that distraught after a wrestling match. It was like Arsenal had just been tanked by Tottenham, wasn't it?
They achieved what they wanted to because you were down on what you'd watched, but you didn't quit. They pushed you far enough.
They were close,
but not too far. Well, that's the line they were trying to toe. They wanted the heartbreak, but without making you switch off. And people have continued to tune in. They have massive numbers for the Bloodline segment.
I'm still not 100% sure it's the right call though. There's been times since that I've thought, okay, I can see what they're doing here.
We'll never truly know, but arguably it was a success for them.
Well, yeah, numbers-wise, monetary-wise, and viewers-wise, yeah. Story-wise, could or should, or would this Bloodline story have been any worse off without the main title? I'd argue that you could do everything that they've done so far without the title.
The last two matches, obviously the tag team versus the Usos, and then versus Jay. I feel like the just versus Jay wouldn't have had as much. Right, I know the Tribal Chief title is on, but
you had the first pinfall, didn't you?
You had the for the first pinfall, but then
first pinfall.
So I feel like people cared more about the championship changing hands potentially than Jay becoming the Tribal Chief, because it's a moniker invented by WWE.
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, Cody's stories would have been a bit more limited because his whole Brock Lesnar story would have had to be very different, because you couldn't have him lose.
No, you could.
The second match.
But you could do it differently.
So arguably everything that happens between now and next Mania, you would think Cody couldn't have lost a match because otherwise it would have been for the title. And it's when Roman is having a match, if that's not for a title, like, where would his story have been without it? Well, once the title eventually switches hands, we'll be able to fully sort of, was it right to wait or them? But in the meantime, I think it might have been. The alternative is completely unpredictable. We could have had it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
but
it's purely hypothetical. I'm at the time that it happened, 100% the wrong idea. I'd say I'm
warming to
60-40 on it being the wrong idea still. But that's just me. People have personal preferences, I guess.
Just to wrap this up, and we've been talking about eras. What is your favourite era in WWE?
Pandemic era. Well, sentimentally, when we grew up, it's the Attitude Era.
Yeah, I didn't start watching
Ruthless Aggression. It was kind of when it was transitioning into Ruthless Aggression. Sentimentally, thinking back, I've never been invested in wrestling WWE as much as I was then. But when you look back now at some of the things that happened, it's questionable.
It was a different time.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to judge things by the time that they're in. Are we just talking WWE here? Because I actually really enjoyed the last 2 to 3 years. What I'm trying to say is, since WWE, since AEW, as the inception of AEW, the amount of content and different wrestling content that's been on offer, I've really enjoyed.
Mighty high praise for AEW. I've never properly been able to get into it, and it's no fault of AEW.
No, it's just different things, isn't it?
You like what you like, and WWE, it kind of scratches that part of my brain when I'm watching it. That I get enjoyment, which sometimes I just don't from AEW.
You give Collision a go, because I personally am not enjoying Dynamite at the minute. But Collision's like a completely different format.
I've watched the odd matches when they've been really good quality matches. It's just some of the stories I've not been as invested in. I'm planning on watching the All In pay-per-view in a week and a bit. Hopefully that could be the stepping stone to getting into AEW for me.
Not sure about that. Yeah, depends what they book on it. Fucking hell.
But
that's a different story for a different podcast.
I would say my favourite is still Ruthless Aggression. Attitude Era is arguably the best era of WWE. Things from that time aside, like looking it through the lens of the song, it was obviously the most successful. You had The Rock, you had Stone Cold, but that end of Ruthless Aggression, I can't think when it actually switched to PG, but that kind of 2005 onwards era WWE was when I really started to get into it. I had all the games, I was watching as much of the shows as I could. Some of the storylines like Batista leaving Evolution.
I absolutely understand that.
Yeah, that I've never been as invested, and I think because I'm getting older, getting more cynical, I don't think I ever will be as invested.
Nah, I just don't know. I'm just thinking back to the 2010s, and most of it was absolute garbage. Like, not great, but there was a period there, 2016, 2017, when SmackDown Live came back. Shane McMahon running it, Daniel Bryan general manager, and they had Ambrose, AJ Styles at the top of the card. The Women's Revolution, Becky Lynch at the top of the women's card. That was a really enjoyable era. Mainly SmackDown. I don't really remember much from Raw at that time.
It tired a lot of people out, but I really liked the
weekly pay-per-views. Almost.
No, I would say the really tanned version of Randy Orton that we got in 2008, 2009, when he was just kicking people in the head.
Yeah, kick Stephanie McMahon in the head.
Like, that villain... That's a top tier wrestling villain. That was.
It just made me remember the weekly pay-per-views, or like the every other week pay-per-views. When I was at uni though, so it's great because I'd watch every single one.
I mean, it feels like thick and fast now. We're only a couple of weeks out from Payback, but back then it was like crazy.
I'm sure it was every 2 weeks.
It felt like. I don't think it actually was. I think they had like 15, 16 a year, but it seemed to happen.
That's insane though. Well, just talking about going back to the Triple H era, if you were to give it a rank out of 10, I'll go 10. I was going to go 5.
Out of 10, I'm gonna be generous because I was thinking a little bit lower than this, but I'm gonna give it like 7, 7.5. I think.
Yeah, I was thinking around 7. I'll go slightly lower. I'll go 6. Room for improvement.
Yeah,
it's good, but there's room for improvement.
He's a B plus player.
He's a B plus player. Ironic.
Couldn't resist.
No. Well, I think that's a good moment to wrap this one up. That's been our little ramble about all sorts of things, really. In that one.
A little bit about SummerSlam, a little bit about the last year, and a little bit about the past of wrestling.
The past. Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to our ramblings. We'll be back again soon with another episode. In the meantime, see you soon. Over to Damien with the socials.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to keep up to date with all things Figure Fourcast, you can follow us on Twitter or X at Figure4UK, on Threads and Instagram at The Figure Fourcast, and on Facebook by searching The Figure Fourcast.